With me in Davos is Mr. TK Kurien, Executive Vice Chairman at Wipro. Mr. Kurien, it's always a pleasure to have you here. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Prashant.
How is the transition going on at Wipro?
Smooth.
Smooth? How smooth?
Very smooth.
Right?
Do you see any friction?
I did not, but really, I mean, what's happening?
Well, just plan for a long, long time. So the whole process started roughly about 2 years ago. And at that point of time, we had three candidates. We finally zeroed down on Abid in sometime in the August-September timeframe in 2014. And we finally got him on board in March of 2015. So it's been a long transition. And he's been aware of what's happening in the company after we agreed that he would get the job.
Okay.
So he's completely kind of immersed in the company. And more importantly, he knows the pluses and the minuses.
Do you have a lighter schedule or a heavier one now?
I'm sleeping more. That's a big thing. My wife is happier. I don't know for how long, but at least she's happier now.
But what do you have? I mean, what's the task sort of for him from here, as far as Wipro goes?
So
the business
I think the biggest thing is that there are lots of technology changes happening right now. There are lots of changes happening in the customer itself. The way we deliver services has got to change. So in many ways, it's a perfect storm for every IT services provider anywhere in the world.
Okay.
If you look at IBM, it gives you a sense of what can happen if you don't change fast enough. So I think from my perspective, the way I would see it is that Abid's job...
IBM did change though, right?
Well,
not quite.
If you look at the decline that they had in order book, that'll give you a sense of the hit that they've taken.
Right.
And it's not easy. It can happen to any one of us. So I think the biggest thing for him would be to kind of make sure that we lay a roadmap for ourselves, which he will announce over the next couple of months.
It's interesting you say perfect storm, right? I mean, so it is pretty tough in that sense.
It's not tough. Here's what is happening. Technology is changing. Customers are changing. In the old days, we could sell to the CIO in plenty and the CIO would buy. Now technology budgets are getting spread between business and CIO. In many cases, what happens is business doesn't know what they want to buy, but they know that they have to buy technology. So the way you sell has to change. It's becoming far more consultative than it ever was.
So then marketing is to change, and that focus is. But you said that technology is changing.
So even technology is changing. If you look at 3 years ago, if you talked about cloud, it was a good thing to have, but it was never mainstream. Now it's completely mainstream. If you look at most of our businesses around the infrastructure piece, the data center part of the business, which we did quite a bit of out of India, all that business is going to be in some form of threat over the next couple of years. Yet there are new opportunities at top of the stack in terms of management. So the transition in terms of skill sets, the transition in terms of business models, in terms of a pay-per-use model, those are all going to become real.
So the bread and butter for Indian IT services, which is application maintenance development, right? That goes down? Or?
See, that will remain in place as long as there are legacy applications out there. But when the movement to the cloud happens, when people start moving bespoke applications into more cloud-based applications, that's where we'll start losing business. But the funny thing about applications is, my own sense is it's a 5 to 7 year transition. And the funny thing about the services business is that no company ever dies. They just wither away. And that's the funny part.
Do you think the Indian IT services landscape is at the risk of withering away?
I don't think so. I think
are people adapting fast enough? I'm not talking about just Wipro.
So nobody's adapting fast enough. Right? But then customers are not adapting fast enough. So to that extent, as long as you can move a little faster than your customers, you're good.
So the customer also at his end does not know how this is going to...
I mean, they're really under pressure right now. So if you look at most IT services, the CIO organizations, all of them in their run part of the business are under huge pressure for cutting costs. On the other hand, they want to take that money out and they invest that in digital and security. That's really the two areas which are getting a substantial part of the business. Now, if you want to sell digital, you've got to start selling it to the business. And in many ways, in the initial part of it is consultative. The minute the scale work starts, it's very unlikely that large players who are global will be able to manage the scale business. But for us, in the meantime, to be ready, we have to reskill our people.
But you're saying that it's a 5 to 7 year period. You have that, not essentially that you have that much time,
But that's the time when it'll go from, say, 100 to, say, 30 in terms of the size of the business.
By the 7th year?
By the 5th or
by the 5th or the 7th year, right?
Yeah.
It could go faster, we don't know.
Right now, we don't know. Right now, it's a bet. But I would think that in the services business, nothing ever changes till a technology refresh cycle comes along. And that comes along in a 3 to 5 year time.
Let me ask you a very cliched question. Do you think the best for Indian IT services is behind?
If we continue to do the same kind of work that we were doing in the past, the same way we were doing it in the past, and selling it just the way we were doing it, it's over. But then, a lot of us are not going to stand still. We're going to change. We're already changing. To that extent, I still think there is opportunity. But it's going to be a much harder field out there. It's not going to be as easy as it was for the past many years. Because people have moved from scale to value. And the minute you have a movement from scale to value, it means the ticket sizes are going to come down. And what you have to offer to customers have to change completely. It's got to be on a case-to-case basis.
I mean, so a lot of the concerns which are pointed out by people, analysts, that those are valid concerns. I mean,
I think, listen, everybody, I think here's what happens.
Because most IT companies, and you're the first, by the way, who's actually openly acknowledging these things. People just shrug it off and say, well, we've come so far and done so well, and we'll continue to adapt and move forward.
So the funny thing about the technology business is this. The past is no indicator of what the future is going to look like.
Yeah, absolutely.
And because it just changes. Look at the number of companies who have come and gone out of the space.
Yeah.
So you have to be paranoid about surviving in this space. To really survive in this space, that's what you're going to be. You're really going to be paranoid about yourself and about the revenue lines that you have. Because every segment of the revenue line can be under pressure over a 7 to 8 year period.
Okay. What's the sort of assessment about automation? Because that's another thing which...
Significant. I think that's exactly what I said. Scale business will not remain the way it is. It will get automated out.
And how far is that kind of sort of transition? Where you
what's happened is that a lot of the work that's going to happen, which is monitoring kind of work, those will get automated out in the next 2 to 3 years. If you look at
which means that hiring here goes down substantially.
So
in India,
what's going to happen is the middle management is the one that's going to get affected.
Okay.
The junior folks are coming in with technology expertise. So they will remain. The very senior guys will remain. It's the middle that's under threat.
Okay. Okay.
And that's going to be the challenge. There's going to be a huge change in the workforce itself that we have to look at.
But what about automation on a large scale in the US, for example, which reduces the need for the number of people here, back home in India?
So I don't think you can ever sell, let me give you 1,000 bodies in India kind of a model anymore. That model is gone.
Yeah.
So you have to sell outcomes. And the way people demand outcomes, and now they're linking it back to the value that they get in their business. So that means fundamentally that you have to now get tied to their value chain far, far closer.
Sure, but there's also the element of automation, right?
Oh, absolutely.
In the US, which means, I'm just trying to understand, is the, huge numbers that IT companies hire every year, and that's been a sort of,
I think you'll see a stage where the hiring continues. But you'll also see a stage where a large part of middle management kind of leaves.
Okay.
So that's going to be the chain that's going to happen, because a lot of the people who have been doing operations work for scale, who haven't kept up with technology, those are the guys who are under threat now going forward.
Mr. Kurien, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much, Chant.
It's a pleasure.
Same here. Thanks
very much.
Thanks a ton.
Thank you.